Tonight I'm joined by our ZEN Tour professional, Mr. Alex Bell, and ZEN golf coach,
Evening.
Sam Skeldon, which you'll have seen on Monday night's tutorial. Tonight is the second instalment of our Q&A session. So I did a session with Foz in Portugal. We had a fantastic response, so thank you very much for all your comments. And we've got some prize winners to announce. So in that video, I said we were going to give one free lesson, but we're actually going to give a free lesson for every comment or question, should I say, that we're going to answer. And in this video, we're going to answer at least two, maybe three. Our first winner, okay, from that is Albert58. So I'm guessing that's not your surname, Albert, but hopefully you're in the UK. But if not, you can travel to us. But you're going to be getting a free ZEN golf lesson from one of the team. You'll be hearing from us in due course. We'll be messaging you. So await that message and congratulations. We picked this question. It's a common question. And tonight we've got the brains of Alex and Sam as well to pick. Particularly Alex in this instance, what he feels in his swing. I'm going to reveal the question in a minute. And then Sam's input into this. And we're going to just play around with it. And you're going to get different perspectives on it. And that's the nature of it. We all see it differently. So the question is, absolutely brilliant episode, Marcus. So thank you, Albert58, for that. Looking forward to this type of session in the future. I do have a question for you. I use the GRFI, so thank you very much for that, Albert. And I am working on developing my power train, now I think chain he meant, from the ground up to improve the golf shot. How do I incorporate side bend into the swing? That's in the GRFI video. And how much side bend should there be? So that's quite a specific question, and it's not something that we particularly pick out, is it? Side bend. I mean, it's a component, isn't it?
It's a byproduct generally, isn't it, of movement? But yeah, it's not something that we'd be focusing on solely in the swing generally.
Exactly, but it is an important component. Alex, so side bend's something that just happens in the swing. If we were to just pick out side bend, okay, if you hit a few shots for me, just for the record, side bend is a lateral flexion. This is what we're talking about here of the trunk. So side bend, it's thoracic side bend from here, okay? So why might this be important in the golf swing? Okay, you can see what it's doing to the shoulders. Okay, you can see what the rib cage is rotating.
When we first did this, Mark, 'cause I remember I used to get it wrong quite often. I used to just end like so, and you were always really focus of attention was always on the centre to really side bend from that point. Whether that's going to be a common thing with people watching or
yeah,
I'm sure.
And that's an awesome point, because we do see a lot of people who would side bend and exactly the chi, by doing that, which is kind of, you're not really isolating the thoracic here, or doing this, moving the pelvis. Okay, we just tilt the pelvis, shift the pelvis, it tilts the spine. Okay, and this is like a cheat mechanism. Whereas if the you can isolate the pelvis there, that's stable, and then isolate this lateral flexion. So now we'll just flex, and that's true lateral flexion. Now that pelvis is free to rotate as well in that, so that could rotate whilst in side flexion. Okay, but if we start to use pelvic shift to get this right shoulder lower, because we're basically trying to bring the arms down, bring the hand path, use the hand path, bring the arms down to bring the club to the ball. Suddenly now we've got this pelvic shift. Now that's going to prevent or restrict the chain, the sequencing. That's going to affect how you were talking about the speed chain as well there, Albert. So that's that sequencing. So it's definitely going to restrict the efficiency of it. Okay, because as soon as you start to move that way, I mean, what does that do to your hips, Sam? So as soon as you start, if you want to just demonstrate what does that do to your left hip now, as in rotation-wise, internal, external, and stuff like that?
Yeah, it kind of locks into internal then. You can't really rotate and you can't really extend either, so you can't really transfer the forces from the body through to the upper body to the arms to release the club. So it's going to inhibit that lower body rotation as well alongside of it.
And so if it inhibits that pelvis rotation, that then means that you're not actually firing that sequence from the pelvis, plus this excessive tilting, okay, means as it's more difficult to rotate, so now you're having to really use the arms, and that's going to affect the release of the club, and you're probably going to add loft and things like that, maybe catch it off the bottom of the club, maybe because it moves the low point back. So as soon as you've got this going on, you're bringing the low point back. So if you're tilting, club head's overtaking the handle, you've now got this low point moving further back, as opposed to the club head trailing the handle. But we'll talk about that in a bit. So Alex, if you want to just hit a few shots for me, just give us an idea of what you experience. If we just focus on just side bend, what do you notice in your swing? What might side bend? We've explained about sequencing, but what use might it be for things like angle of attack or things like that? And for release. If you want to play a few shots and tell us what you feel.
It's such, I think, trying to get it from a perspective of the viewer, it's such a difficult thing to isolate the feeling during the act of it. So to probably think of it in that way is not the best thing to do moving forward. But just to maybe, I feel it more obviously when it's slowed down. So if we're trying to be specific on a feeling, then the only way I can actually generally feel it properly is in like a slow motion. And I think that I then match it up with the pressure trace is my reference point to probably where I feel the side bend actually is in the swing. I feel it definitely more with pitching. When we had a session not so long ago where we really talked about allowing the club, the pitching felt like it was more kind of like from the centre point of my body. Yeah. That's when I really felt the side bend, as opposed to with driver and stuff. I feel like I feel it less, a lot less, from my personal feeling and sensation point of view. But it is always something that we've tried to work on, and it's always something that's never been probably like 10 out of 10 in terms of from my what I perceive as my technique anyway. So that's always a work in progress, and just to isolate it isn't that easy for me to do either, to be honest. Just to literally. So I think it's a difficult question to answer in terms of, you know, what do you feel and how do you feel? But it happens so fast. I don't think you do. So that's the honest answer for me anyway.
I mean, it's like throwing a ball and then picking out a particular movement component of that action and going, when does that happen? How does it happen?
You kind of guess that.
It's a part of a Swiss watch, but it is part of the movement, and we can recognise it, and it is important in respect of enabling you to lag the golf club. So, for example, Sam, if you wanted to just talk about the sequencing and how. So if we're not, we see it a lot. So if we're using a GRF and we bang the board, and say you see someone banging the board like this, so they're just basically shifting the pelvis, okay, like, and just as you said, putting themselves into an internal with the hips, internal rotation. What you'll often see, rarely will you see someone slide in flexion. You'll often see them just extend. It's a cheat to extend and tilt basically. You'll often see what it does is it tilts, and then this basically shifts your low point back, and you'll see better players who can play like this, and who are really used to the timing of it. You'll see them with the ball position further back, and they'll have a really open face, and they'll be playing they'll play strong draws and things like that. And there's nothing to say you can't play like that, but for the average golfer who might not have that skill acuity to adapt, then you want to make life easier. So we don't want to be excessively shifting the pelvis, because we're going to now restrict its function. Think about throwing a ball. If we do something like this, we're probably not going to be able to throw with that much power. So, but you do shift your weight. So you do shift, but then you go. So the sequence happens probably later. And what we often see is a lot of players who get to the ball too early. So it's and then they go, oh, my timing's off. But it's like they're not really recognising the movement that produces that timing, if you like. So it's kind of, instead of shifting the pelvis, which now locks you out, and now you've got to essentially use the arms, because you can't fire that chain. We're moving in a way So essentially just trying to throw the ball. I mean, there's a few drills we use, Sam, to help people recognise that chain, but then once you start to feel that chain, essentially lagging the end of the chain here, how do you get the club to the ball? So from here, if this club's here, and we're not going to be using the arms, how do we get that to the ball? I'll let you explain that, Sam.
So it comes down to, like I said, sequencing and the timing of when you're using the side bend, but there's obviously there's conditions that you can kind of use to set up that for when it happens, and I think what he's touching on with the shifting your centre of mass and sliding to get your weight shift across, let's say, you've got the centre of mass then really shifting and not rotating when you probably need it later on. So if you think about the centre of mass, it moves much quicker up and down as opposed to side, and this can create quite unstable conditions as well then, where the body can't really rotate in, so it does increase that necessity to have to go to the end of the chain, to the arms, to try and find the ball. So this is where you can start to tap into ways to actually allow this to lag behind, as Marcus is kind of explaining there, and really using the centre of mass to go up and down, increase the likelihood of you actually using your side bend when you need it later on.
Swing back, take your left hand off, just keep your right on. Now, you're not allowed to use that wrist, it's got to stay in that place. How do you get the club down to the ball? So just sweep your cut. So how do you get that club to the ball? So to the ball, lower to the ball.
I've got a side bend to get down there.
So do you notice his arm is still in some flexion. So you know when you see the still shots, like if we still shot Alex's swing at impact, his right elbow should be, it is, it's in flexion. It's not extended. Okay. So why is it still? How's that still in flexion? And why is it still in flexion? Okay. Why is that still in flexion? And why is this wrist? It's moving into flexion, that wrist, which is that action there. It's like a hinge, but it's still in extension, and it's flexing. But at impact, you'll often see the hands ahead of the club head, and you'll often see the elbow flex. Now, we're not trying to emulate the tour players, but it's something all good players do. If you were going to hit something hard, not you, Sam, okay, when you actually strike the object, you'll still have flexion here in the wrist, okay, or like it's extension. You'll have flexion in the elbow, bang, to get power. You don't do this, okay, you do that, okay, and it's no matter where you are, whatever you're hitting, whatever you're throwing, you're going to be in extension, flexion, and you're going to be rotating, you're going to be using side bend. So what is that side bend component doing? Well, it's allowing you, it's a rotation, okay, it's a rotation, and it's allowing you to not only transfer energy through to the end of the chain, because if I don't use that, if I've not got side bend and I just rotate, you try throwing a ball without any side bend and just rotate. You can't get the energy to the hand, okay? So there's no transfer of speed through to the hand. They're isolated components, because basically the side bend is what gels these two things together. It combines these components. So as soon as you start to rotate, so the answer is, as you're rotating, you are side bending at the same time. So it happens as you rotate. So like Alex said, it doesn't really think about it. Like Sam said, it's part of the sequence. As you're rotating, you're also side bending, and what that does is, it retains all this, really, as a product of keeping that behind you. So it's absolutely essential to maintain lag, and also now, the all-important shaft lean. So now you've got the sweet spot coming down to the golf ball, and hey presto, you're in this position, which is where you'd be if you were hitting something hard. So that's why you see impact bags and people use all that kind of stuff, but it's a little bit superficial, because you hit an impact bag and then you go to a golf ball, and it doesn't happen, okay? Because that impact bag is a moment in time, it's one snapshot. And it's like, this impact, what you see, and people try and emulate, is just a position, it's one frame in time, but that's a product of a sequence. So what Sam was saying was absolutely perfect. So the side bend brings the club down, but also maintains the lag. So if you've got problems with an early release, adding loft, flipping it, things like this, low point that's too far back, side bend is absolutely essential, but it's recognising when you do it, how you do it, are you doing it too much? I mean, the kind of feedback you'll get from your golf shot will tell you that. And the strike with the ground, if you're hitting the ground too early before the ball, stuff like that, if you're missing the ball, stuff like that, you're not getting the club to the ground.
To have that side bend is obviously the club's going to have to be coming from behind as well, so it's lagging behind in the sequence. So key word there being sequence. We want to make sure that we are sequencing in a correct way to facilitate this later release with the side bend as well. So using the giraffe board, simply you've got some nice auditory feedback here in the sound, pressure shifting before with sense, impact and the release as well is quite handy to be able to use. You can do this one or two-handed as well, but often as well we get people just swinging it back and forth, feeling the pressure shifting from side to side, and then really sensing the pressure and the banging of the board before the club would actually swing down. So we've got this change of direction of momentum from the board tipping and the club swinging as well, and then you've got the club coming from behind, as Marcus was showing, to allow us to then release later and use the side bend to delay that earlier release, which to an effort to try and find the ball, which you would typically find when you've got this block movement happening where the club and the pressure shifting at the same time, so you've not really got any separation in your segments, in your sequence essentially. So using the giraffe board to really initiate that downswing and backswing, but in particular downswing here, just to sense that pressure shift early, and you can even leave the club behind you for the exercise. So you're starting to get a sense spatially where the club would be when you start to move your pressure back as well. Is quite a...
And that's setting up the conditions ready for that sequence with side bend, but you don't have to have a GRF, so you could do it with your feet kind of fairly close together, swing back, and before the club gets to the top, you've got to take a step to the left. So it's there, and you're just starting to feel, notice that inflection. So Sam didn't bang the board by shifting and extending, notice he was still inflection, so he's actually dropping. He talked about, we'll mention it in another video, we'll talk about the centre of mass going up and down, but basically shifting that pressure, inflection. You only have to watch Alex's swing, you'll see shifts there, and that literally creates all the conditions ready to let this thing go. Now, how do you experience side bend? You can use throwing. If I can step in a second, I'd actually use a golf club like a spear, like a javelin. Okay, so essentially, what's it going to feel like to throw this forward at the target? So, it's your golf club, I get it. Yeah. So we've just changed golf clubs because we're not going to use Alex's pristine clubs. He's already smashed one driver. So here we go. So you could literally just practice throwing this. And if you were going to throw this just straight ahead, it doesn't have to go up, it can just straight ahead. But notice the movement in your body straight away. Look where you look at how the body's extended, rotated, but more importantly, the side bend. And notice how it's not extending. I'm not trying to get speed out to the end to the javelin or the golf club or the spear or whatever by doing this. It's through rotation, side bend, and then this all releases later. So it's like throwing the ball. This all happens way later, not early. Do this early. I'm already here. I can't. There's no need for to move the body because I've already done all that work with my arms. So I've lost all that movement. I've not got time to use it. Don't need it because I'm already at the ball. This is back here. I've got to use the body. Okay. So we're already familiar with all these natural actions, throwing, well, whatever it is, whether it's a golf club, whether it's a ball. And what we're doing is just exploring that with the golf club. So, Alex, if you want to just throw that with your right arm like I just did. Just like, yeah, that's it.
Just actually throw it?
Actually, just at the screen, just like, just hold it in your thumb and forefinger like that, just like that. That's it. But notice straight away, what does he do to throw it? He's flexing to throw, and that's giving him also control of where he's throwing this. Once he starts to release early, he loses control of where that's going. So it is like throwing a ball, throwing a dart, you're controlling the end of the chain, and you're controlling it through all these flexions and extensions too. That's enabling him to have control over this direction, this launch. Once he starts to lose his sequence, he's lost all this. So you've lost the end of the chain, you've lost the sense of control over the end of the chain. This taps into awareness of your release, awareness of face and path, because you've lost, essentially this just becomes distorted. So now, when he throws this, so there's that, on the flight scope, it's asleep at the minute, so wake up, okay, that's where we're going to throw it, and see if you can hit it. Okay, let's see if you can hit it with that grip, the butt end of the grip. Try not to think, don't think of a golf swing, see he's releasing early, so it's almost hitting it with a club head. So this is, let me step in, there, it's more like this. So you can see how the ball is travelling like that. This isn't taking over, hasn't it?
Not as easy as said and done, is it?
We've found a chink in Alex's armour. Have a go, Sam.
Can't say that.
I want to have a go at this. I want to have a go at this.
So notice though, you're holding it like you're thinking golf.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're holding it like this. I held it like a pen.
Yeah.
For control. Yes. There we go.
Yeah. See, I was thinking throw it like a dart.
And Alex is thinking like a golf swing. I think.
Yeah.
As
Throw
well.
it
So
like
think of it like a dart.
like a dart.
Like, so
It's more
that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah. You're thinking too golf.
You just say it.
You should have done
There you go.
it. Should have thrown it a bit harder.
But guys, this is a typical example. Just try to throw that again. This is a typical example, right, of what this does to your movement map. So how you recognise how you move. When you think golf, it skews everything and creates distortion, right? Because what it's done is it's just look at now he's starting. Now he's moving in a way that's better for golf. Exactly. Not thinking golf.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which created, it's thinking golf swing technique and how do I incorporate this? How do I incorporate this into what I recognise as some kind of golf movement? And it's trying to make this fit his ideals of a golf swing concept as opposed to just throw that thing. And actually, what did you just do? And now do it with a golf club. Okay. So you're actually using all the other attributes of your skill set, which you'd apply to any normal kind of primitive action, and you're adapting that to golf, as opposed to thinking about golf and then trying to make this fit. Yeah. So have another go now and see. Awesome. Now look at that, you see. But that's this is testing. This is just an example of your skill level. So now grip the club normally. Okay. And just grip the club normally, and just sense what you just did with that throw, but in the form of a golf swing, without letting go of it, of course. But just what's it feel like? Feel a bit different?
Yeah. I can actually. It heightens the sense of the side bend massively.
Wow.
Just by doing that exercise.
So that's how you isolate side bend, by using the primitive movement, not thinking golf. As soon as you think golf swing, it distorts everything. And it also doesn't allow you to really explore your movement potential because you're doing it within the confines of the motor map that you currently use. When I say motor map, I mean movement map, where the patterns that you recognise that you can use. So it's kind of suddenly now, instead of you being able to use this sequence and then apply it to your golf swing, because he was thinking of golf, he was getting that early release. Okay, make sense?
And also, I was more in my mind thinking about feeling the movement as opposed to getting engaged with the actual task of, because when you gave me that example then, it totally changed my awareness of what I was about to do, just through your linguistics, really, the way you're speaking, and getting me to apply just the kind of do it, which is probably why I can't elaborate too much on the sensory awareness that I've got when it comes to hitting a shot, because probably I'm more engaged with the shot, which is exactly what we're trying to train for.
Yes, exactly.
So there's two different ways of training really.
I mean, there's lots of different ways, but like you said, the linguistics and the language creates context, and it's a recontextualization. So when you're trying to practice, you're essentially, when you're trying to improve and develop your swing, you're reinventing. Reinventing requires recontextualization, which means actually the self-talk is so important. So if you're talking to yourself and talking about all your kind of normal movements that you use every time, and like swing thoughts or feelings that you've grown attached to, and that this is what I think about in my swing, okay, then what that might be doing is restricting your development, because it's not allowing you to do this. Because every time you try and explore something like side bend or whatever it may be, you just go back to default patterns, because the language, the self-talk is the same, so the context is the same, so it's cueing previous habits really, which is the golf swing's the habit. So the side bend, like you said, is a component of the pattern, and that's what Sam was talking about. It's a sequence, and side bend's just a component, but you can isolate it. And I think what you're alluding to there is you can train in different ways. You can have your mind on side bend while you're trying to hit that, but just it's a mindful awareness of what's actually happening while you're trying to perform this task. I can be aware of what my side bend, what this is doing while I'm doing that. Now I can pick up the club and have a swing, and I can try and, I wouldn't say recreate it, but I can explore what it's like. So do you want to explore it with just throwing a ball, Sam? Just show us throwing a ball. Throwing the ball's the same thing. In fact, there's probably even more. Now notice what he's just done. Notice what he's just done. He started here, took a step forward. Okay, took a step forward. Why is he doing that? For the reason he's just said on here. Bang, he's getting ready to create the conditions for the sequence. We do these things automatically. So same thing, yeah, take a step and then off you go, boom.
Bullseye.
Now we should play golf. We should play golf with this same level of accuracy. Okay, yes, there's these variables are difficult. There's more variables to control and stuff, but the body is so able to perform. I mean, Belty's level of accuracy on his golf shots, particularly on his irons and drivers, it's like a laser. It's very high. So you already employ these in your movement. But for the average golfer, who probably doesn't have any side bend, and he's doing this is an absolute game changer, because it's going to create the opportunity now to release the club in a way that you can suddenly develop an awareness for and start to regulate. Have another throw, Sam. And then play around with how much lag. So even more lag, so it's like a baseball pitcher. And what you could do is now you could just do a one-handed swing, just without throwing it, just feeling the side bend in the release. When the release comes, that feel different?
Yeah.
And then both hands. So you can first of all do it with one hand, then both hands. And you start to recognise that as part of a component, a part of the sequence. So you've isolated it, and then you integrate it. It becomes compliant as part of the sequence, but you're moving in a way that's facilitating that, and then you recognise and you can play around with it. That's the nature of it. That makes sense?
Perfect.
Fantastic question. Thank you, Albert. Enjoy your lesson. We'll be in touch soon. So I hope that's answered it. Okay, in depth. Let's find the next question, and the next competition winner, Derek Graham. Derek, congratulations, you are our second winner. Another free lesson. So Derek's a great question. I'm going to shut up for this one and let Sam answer this with Belty. I suffer from early extension and clearing my hips. I never hear you guys mention this in your lessons. Does your philosophy simply stop this happening without thinking? Or do you fix this in the bits of the videos we don't get to see? Derek, do you think we hide stuff from you? Of course we don't. We're not doing any hocus pocus behind the scenes.
You chose him as a winner.
What we're doing, Derek, is the YouTube videos are snapshots of what you're seeing. It's a 3-hour lesson, but it's a true representation of that lesson. You're not. Of course, there's things we're doing. A lot of it is what Belty talked about is language. Okay, that you might not get on the YouTube video because we haven't got the time. It's a 20-minute video and it's a 3-hour lesson. But Sam can talk you through this one in a bit more depth and at more length. So I'm going to have a sit down and watch you boys. So what is it first? Yeah. If you and Belty want to show the guys what it is.
Yeah, I mean,
from it to be our body.
Yeah, generally the coin early extension is where you see the pelvis moving forward, midline going forward like this. Yeah, so the pelvis extending forward. We call it goat humping as well, another term, where you can see that they're moving forward onto the toes. And that kind of goes hand in hand with really not allowing the hips to be able to rotate them as well, because the body, the pressure's in a place in the feet which probably isn't going to facilitate the ability to rotate the hips, so hence why you don't get the rotation along with the early extension to it as well. And it's something we do see often. You can see as Alex is demonstrating, he's kind of just really shifting forward out towards his toes. Yeah, his hips are moving forward, and it really kind of leaves you stuck then because you can't really tap into that lower body sequence in the swing, so you're going to really have to go further up the body to try and get the rotations that you're missing from further down, which we often see. But as well, it's kind of the cause and effect here, because extension is a byproduct of using your vertical force, and it's really important to transfer your rotational force through the swing. So it's something that the player's movement strategy needs. You need this in your movement. It's just really the timing of when you're getting it. And if you did try and prevent yourself from doing this, it's probably going to make it even harder for you, to be honest with you, to actually create some power loss. It's a mechanism, a strategy that you're incorporating at the moment, but it's just really all about the timing of it, I'd say, when it's happening. And as well, you quite often see this with guys that are infamous with kind of over the top or have a kind of biased leftward swing direction for a right-handed golfer, because they're moving in a way where the pressure's going forward, so it's quite unstable to start with, and also it's going to be quite hard, if I exaggerate it from this angle, it's going to be quite hard to be able to actually rotate my hips as well and my pelvis with this. So now I've got to go further up to the upper body to try and create some speed, and this has probably got to go quite early on in the sequence now to try and get to the ball in time to transfer the speed through it as well. And if you've got your upper body and your arms really driving the movement to make up for this lost movement further down in the chain, it's going to go early, it's going to go quick, and then that lends itself to this leftward swing direction, what's coined over the top, and tend to concede big slices and high slices that come with that as well.
It links to that question we've just talked about with side bend. That side bend actually creates the need for the sequence, because once you start to side bend here, this is all lagging, so you need to start to rotate, but it's kind of how you're rotating. What Sam talked about was the centre of mass moving forward. Now you can use balance pads, as Sam said, because really I would link this to pressure through the feet, but you can also link it to the hips. So we can use the rotating disc to link it to the hips. So if you want to talk about hips, if you wanted to twist these discs, okay, you ain't going to go onto your tiptoes. Okay, so if I want to rotate my hips, I'm not going to go onto my tiptoe to rotate this disc. I'm just going to rotate it here with my foot in contact with the disc. But more importantly, I'm controlling where my centre of mass is, because when I go on my tiptoes, what I'm really doing is moving my mass forward, and now I can't really rotate the discs. So keep the mass here, and you can rotate. Okay, so if I was throwing a ball, or I would suggest something heavier. So we've got a medicine ball, cheers Sam. So grab something heavy, Belty's wallet, that works as well. So all his winnings. So holding the ball, just supporting it. How are you going to swing this using these rotating discs, okay? And how do you get speed? So what Sam mentioned was flexion and extension. That's going to get the mass moving up and down. That's going to help fire that sequence. It's going to help add speed, okay? Because we're using more vertical force, but it's the timing of that vertical force. It's the timing of when we push. This really gives us it's a cool training aid, because what it does is it gives us a sense, it gives us a feedback loop, which gives us a sense of timing of not only when we apply this movement, but we also get a sense of how we're moving. So it's kind of, first of all, rotating. Now, if you stay in flexion, so if I keep my knees bent, and if I bend forward from my hips and I don't really move, yeah, I can rotate, and I can do it in a stable way, but I'm probably not going to get much speed, and I'm having to put a lot of effort in. I'm having to physically swing this ball. But as soon as I start to extend and create what's called a pivoting torque, suddenly now I've got this rotation that I'm able to transfer through the body. So if I stand up, suddenly now I can let this swing. So there's a flexion and extension, a flexion and extension. You'll see loads of players do it. You'll see loads of players, Bubba Watson, Lexi Thompson, Bryson, the long hitters, the long distance guys do it. They're like this, okay? But what has, and our resident legend Craig behind the camera, okay? You'll see these guys do it, and girls, but it's way before, okay, the actual striking of the golf ball, and what's preceded it is the flexion, the side bend, the rotation, and then when you see this extension, that's when everything gets released. So there's loads of stuff going on before it. If you do it straight away, okay, and you stand up, yeah, you're going to be shifting your mass forward, extending, and that's going to the accelerator straight away, like Sam said with the upper body. Swing direction left, because mass moves forward. Got to bring the mass of the club across to maintain balance, and suddenly you're going left. Whereas if we want this thing to swing that way, we've got to oppose it. We can't go with it. Okay, we've got to oppose it. How do we oppose it? Something that's travelling that way, the hands are going that way, so I've got to go this way. So how do I go this way? I've got to extend. To get power, I've got to rotate, and to swing it up, my hand path's got to go up, which means I've got to side bend. So I need rotation, extension, and side bend just to swing my hands, to swing my arms that way, okay, and release it. And then when I start to time this movement, I get the speed at the right time of the release. So just throwing this, you don't even need the rotating disc, just something heavy, and just visualise, simulate throwing it up, throwing it back, and then you'll feel that load into the floor. That's that flexion Sam was talking about, and this is creating all those preconditions now, boom, to extend, rotate. So just using something like that, and then getting a golf club and start to just simulate that. So feeling that extension and then that flexion. This ties in to what Sam was talking about and the drill that he did earlier, where he shifts the pressure back. So we've thrown it, extension, throwing the club, before it even gets to the top, we're already flexing and loading that way. It's like throwing the ball. And now you're in a place where your mass is under control because it's within the base of your support, so you can rotate, extend, do what you like. Once this mass moves towards, I'm pointing at my pelvis, but that's mass is really in here, but it's kind of just it's a good reference. If you're moving forward and your mass is moving, centre of mass is moving to the edge of the base, you're unstable, body starts to lock up, fight, flight, freeze. Suddenly you're going to start using just the movable parts of your system, the most easily recruitable, which are it's the end of the chain, and then it's haywire. So here, throwing it, and it's really that javelin again. Okay, so it's all the same thing, to be fair. We're just picking out different components of the same thing. That's all it is. And you could do this a million times, but you're always talking about the same thing. So, but you're doing it in different ways, and that's the beauty of the system we've got here, is that you're developing awareness through all these exercises, which is refining your awareness. So yeah, you could be singling any of these out, but actually you're doing them automatically as part of, as a byproduct of doing the exercise. So rotating discs, then get the club, extend. If I stay in flexion, that's okay, but really, is that providing energy through to the club? Not really. I've still got to use my arm, whereas if I extend, now I don't need to use my arm, okay? I'm transferring that, there's a transfer of speed through the system. And then I need to flex again, ready to extend, to get speed, because the extension gives me that rotation. So I need to extend to rotate, and if you've already extended, it's done. I've used it, I'm shot now, all I can do is that. So what Sam talked about earlier, that's absolutely necessary, that's prerequisite, that movement. So the step-in drill, okay, the throw-in, all these things are tapping into these sequences that you already possess. Belty's got it, Sam's got it, I've got it, Craig's got it, you there at home, you've got it. You've just not probably applied it in the right way because you're not using your body the same way that you would do for those other actions. In golf, you're thinking, like Belty did, when he was thinking about throwing this like a spear. He was trying to, it didn't compute, he was trying to think about a golf swing. As soon as you go back to these primitive actions, as soon as you challenge the body with these things, these are a challenge, you overcome that challenge. And by overcoming that challenge, you're going through a learning process. It's a deep state of learning where you are problem solving, and by virtue of that problem solving, you're creating recognisable patterns that stick because you've joined the dots. So by achieving that task, you've joined all the dots and essentially creating or using these patterns, creating a functional pattern that you apply with a golf ball, you start to recognise you can play around with and ultimately own. Because no one's giving you this movement. It's not a P, okay? It's not a, we ain't thinking P's in the swing. There's no positional thoughts. It's a motion, and this thing just happens it happens automatically. So just by essentially performing these exercises, these patterns will emerge, you're going to recognise them, and that's what you're going to play around with in your practice. And practicing is the next question. But Derek, I'd like to thank you for your question. Congratulations on winning a free lesson. We'll be in touch. And to finish off this video with our third question, and it's Danny Fit Life. Well done, Danny. Thanks for your question. Congratulations. You've won a free lesson as well. It really is a giveaway night tonight. Fantastic question. This kind of leads on from the last question because it's more mindset related. Question, how do you take the practice mindset onto the course in a medal? I don't know what the difference between medal and Stableford or match plays. I think if you're playing golf, you're playing golf. I know what you mean, but again, these are kind of false attachments that we kind of create. And as a result of that, we start thinking about potential coping strategies, which just further manifests that issue in your psyche, and suddenly now it's there, it's embedded, it's like this has become a thing, and now it ain't going to go away, it's just going to probably grow, and that feel or that sense or that importance you're applying, that sense of kind of importance to that medal round is essentially hindering you. We've all had those first tee nerves, no matter who we are and who we're playing or whatever, but it's kind of it's the mindset that you're applying that's allowing you to, I mean, Belty's the perfect person to talk about this, but we've not finished it yet. Here we go. I've preempted it. Struggling to let go of all the information and getting to the target. Great stuff as always. So thanks a lot, Danny. Really appreciate that. Cheers, Sam. There's no one way of practicing, but how do you differentiate between practice? What is practice? Should you differentiate? Hitting a golf ball is hitting a golf ball. Okay, what are you doing before you play golf? Because you're talking about a medal play there and you're talking about practice. So it's like, are you warming up or are you practicing before you go and play? And do you need to practice, as in before you play, or do you need to warm up before you play? So thinking of, say, Premiership football, right? Depending on the game or the time he goes on the pitch, say it's a 60-minute sub, okay? They don't have a training pitch out the back, and he says, go and practice your kicks before you go on, okay? They go and run a few lengths up and down the pitch and do some warm-up exercises, and then go and play. And they might not go flat out straight away. They might, depending on what the situation of the game is, or what time they're coming on the pitch, how late on it is, whether it's a striker or whatever coming on for a last-minute ditch attempt for a goal or something, or do they ease themselves into the game? So it's kind of, what do you do? What's the best way for you to apply yourself and warm and prepare for playing? Some people can get out of their car and just go on that first tee. It was interesting when we had that practice session with Foz in Portugal the other week, and he was talking about Rory McIlroy. So Rory McIlroy hits about 10 shots before he goes on the first tee. 20, he says, max, okay? But what people don't see is the 2 hours that he spent in the gym before. But he's not practicing his golf swing, he's warming up, ready to go and play golf. And then hits a few balls just to, whatever it is, loosen up. And then he goes on that first tee and now he plays golf. Sergio Garcia played a full season without stepping on the practice ground. So I know these guys are skilled, okay, but that's just like any other sport you play. So when you're playing, if you were playing tennis or playing football, or do you go and practice all your skills and train your skills before you go and actually go and have a game? It's like I've got to go on the tennis court first for an hour, practice my forehand, practice my backhand, practice my smash, practice my topspin lob, practice where am I going to put it in that with my serves. So what is this serving to do? It's serving to put you into a mode of almost a practice state, a kind of you're thinking about what you're doing, you're starting to think about the actual execution and what you're doing to execute, and you're starting to become a lot more, if you like, intrinsic in the way that you're performing, as opposed to being a lot more external and just playing the game. So going and stepping on that football pitch and playing, stepping on that tennis court, picking up the racket, you already know how this movement feels. You don't need the tennis racket. So you know pretty much what a topspin lob's going to feel like, or a smash. You don't need the racket in your hand, but you put the racket in and you're making a very similar movement. So you already know these patterns. It's the same with golf. So I would say, of course you need to practice personally, but don't confuse practice with warming up, because that's just going to serve to create more tension, pressure. In my mind, I mean, it might be different. We'll get Belty's and Sam's take on this in a minute, but because Belty's played on the European Tour event, so it's kind of the highest, and he's played in European Tour winners, and obviously he's won hundreds of events himself. So you know better than we do about performing at a high level. But from a coaching, skill acquisition, kind of performance perspective that I'm looking at it from, is you're playing the game, you're just warming up, you're preparing your body to go and play. So how you do that can take on many different forms. But you practice away from the course, you're developing skill, and that's what this is all about. So all we've been doing here tonight is exploring your skill base and how you apply it, and upskilling, okay, with all these kind of intuitive exercises. But they've all got deep meaning, so in your mind, you know why you're doing it, it's purposeful. And then you can explore with games-based stuff, or go on the course and just have a few holes. It's how you differentiate between practice, play, warming up, all that kind of stuff. I mean, Belty...
People don't though, do you? That's the just reading the actual ins and outs of that question itself, for him to actually type practice mentality. What is a practice mentality? And also, why does that relate to then going to play a medal, specifically in that question on the course? So then you've got to ask the question is, does that mean, because lots of times when I've given lessons and had lessons myself, my mind is very, very fresh on the specifics of what we've worked on. And even though in the back of my mind I know that I shouldn't really be thinking about those things during the act of definitely playing a tournament, or in that case a medal, that those thoughts should have been left on the driving range or in the net. So that would be my interpretation of a practice mentality. You can have so many variables within your practice mentality. It's not just about thinking about technique to then go and kind of impose that technique on the first tee. There's a difference between kind of flow mentality, there's a difference between tournament mentality. I want to think like a winner. I want to be a winner. And to become a winner, you can't be thinking about basically trying to replicate something that you've done on the driving range, which might have been successful, because the amount of players, amateurs who I speak to, whether it's my dad or friends, whoever, they all have the same problem, and they all come up with the same comments of, well, I hit it great on the driving range before I went and played, and it was terrible on the course. And then you get the opposite of that as well. Bradley Dredge talked about this to me quite a lot a few years ago. He talked about he could have some horrific range sessions, and that almost subconsciously lowered his expectations. He went on the course thinking, well, today's going to be crap, and he shot some of the best rounds ever played. So there are no real rights and wrongs, but the intention for a practice mentality on competition day should really be restructured as a warm-up mentality. because you're warming up your body, you're trying to then almost forward think to the potential shocks that you might face that day. And it can be predictable, because if you're on the driving range and it's a 50-mile-an-hour wind, you would start to maybe adapt your shocks to the conditions and the environment. So you can start to predict it from that point of view. You can then start to predict it from a point of view of, well, you know what, if it didn't start off so good on the driving range, gives you maybe a little bit of an insight of how you're feeling, how you're moving that day, but you can drop all that the moment you get onto the course and just maybe fall into play mode. So there's a difference between play mentality, practice mentality, and then once you get on the course and you get moving, you start kind of assessing the situation of how did you start the round, how was the middle of the round, then you start looking at your scorecard and you think, oh, well, I'm having a good round today, don't cock it up. And then that has a massive physiological effect on your body for how you then start perceiving the last few holes. And again, another common comment is, well, I looked at my scorecard, I had 4 holes to go and I cocked it up. That happens all the time, no matter whatever level, also known as choking, probably in the professional game. And we've seen it, we've seen Rory choke at the Masters back 9.
He's just done it
last Sunday.
I did it, yeah. But it's a game with so many variables. Sometimes it can be perceived as a choke, and other times it can maybe be perceived as a bit of bad luck, or he's just made some bad decisions under the circumstances. So that's another state of mentality, your decision making. So your tactical awareness when you're actually on the course itself, how you deal with your own emotions. But then the more time you start to delve and understand these different ways of thinking, you then start to learn from it. So for example, if you did have a good card going and you had 4 holes left, and then you walked off thinking, I've just thrown that, try and think, really, what did you do differently? Because you're obviously doing something right to get to the point where you then chucked it. So I would then probably sit back, think about it and think, well, okay, does a specific shot happen every time I get under pressure? Do I feel myself wishing holes away? That was something I used to do a long time ago, because I had a good card in my hand. I was like, okay, I'd rather just cull it now. And then with that, that kind of weak mentality, it can really have a massive effect on the way that you start to move and influence your decision making. So then you think, well, okay, how can I rectify that the next time I go out? So through experiential learning, you can maybe sort of think, well, right, I'm going to slow it down, which sounds very, very basic. But ultimately, you're allowing yourself the time to just quieten the system down, maybe look at your course bite, look at the shot choice that you're about to hit. Are you rushing it? Aren't you rushing it? All these different questions which can have a massive impact on ultimately the outcome of the shot. So learning to take control of yourself before you start to take control of the round. And then ultimately the byproduct of that is the result. So if the result is good, like it is, more than likely you're going to win. Yeah. So then that all is encompassed in the winner's mindset from my point of view. So having a winner's mindset, not a practice mindset to take from the driving range or the net or whatever, even just sat in your car, to the first 2. There's a massive difference. So exploring lots of different ways, and this is why the mind-body motion, the concept that I talk about a lot, is all interconnected and needs to be kind of looked into. So to me, just by reading that question says that person's probably more of a technical kind of mindset when it comes to going from the range to the course. And ultimately, it's not. We don't want to be like that. And I proved that in the session earlier when I was relating the simple task into the golf swing. And ultimately, in order to achieve the task, I actually restructured that how you basically asked me to, and it became so much easier. So that is very, very similar to what we're talking about. So engage more with the task as opposed to thinking about the task during the task. And ultimately, that is the biggest hindrance of all action. If you are thinking too much while trying to do something, quote unquote, quote Bruce Lee.
Yeah. I mean that look, like for a person of your skill level, as in all movement, it looked like a completely different version of you trying to throw that spear.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I've been playing golf all my life, pretty much, and I mean I've not played properly for a while, and I've not hit balls for a while. And it's funny, isn't it, how just as human nature, I go to it even when I'm aware of it. I'm highly aware of it,
Yeah.
but I still did it.
Exactly.
And I
it's,
needed you.
it's default.
I needed you to kind of allow that to emerge.
And all I'm providing is really a mirror.
Which is
we're coaches, we're just providing a mirror. It's a sounding board, it's a mirror, but enabling you just to reflect on what you're doing and recognise a bit of self-realisation actually, because you're easily able to do that, of course.
Yeah.
You're a skilled sportsman in loads of sports, you can apply yourself, but because you were thinking of it in the context of a golf swing, suddenly it was a far inferior version of you. Now if you take that into the context, if you take that into a game of golf, and it was a simple task like doing this, but you're thinking about how you're doing it, suddenly it's a different version of you. I think what you were talking about there, quite a few times, you see this with lots of good players, he talked about mindset, but he talked about physiology, he talked about the system. So you talked about slowing things down, you talked about, and a lot of this is down to things like breathing and you talked about self-awareness. So what things can you do to maintain a stable state where you are actually not allowing things to fluctuate too much? So maybe warming up maybe with the TheraBand and doing some stretches, and then going onto the range and using that range time, like Alex said, to become a bit more accustomed to the environment for that day, the conditions, what's the wind like, is it a strong wind, what kind of shots am I going to need today? Using those balls now as an opportunity just to adapt for that day, not reading too much into the execution as in the outcome, as it's like kind of just feeling the kind of adjustments you need for that day. I'm going to hit a bit lower, going to hit downwind, maybe with a tee shot, let a few high ball flights, hit a few low ball flights. So you're attuning yourself for that day, and I think that's critical, that is. But then walking to the tee and being mindful about your state. So controlling your breathing a little bit, controlling your focus. It's like going to the tee, and what Alex was talking about there is these are kind of processes, and the result is the byproduct, and then that outcome is something that you're not attaching judgment to or too much importance. You're just accepting it when you're going through your process and letting the results. I know they often say it in the post round interviews, players just let the score take care of itself and take it shot by shot, but there's a lot in that. It's kind of just preparing yourself for that shot, because you can only play one shot at a time, so prepare yourself for that shot you're about to play. Don't get ahead of yourself. Just, I know it's an old cliche, one shot at a time, but it's very true. So the same with your practice.
It's so simplistic that it takes a complicated process in order for it to truly be simplistic.
Yeah. So how are you best preparing yourself for that next golf shot? Like Alex said, are you operating at a speed that's allowing you to process everything, take in the conditions, recognise where the flag is, recognise where you need to be landing the ball, recognise the distance, how it's going to affect your distance, what kind of shot do you need to hit, making practice swings now that are meaningful. Now I'm going to launch it a bit lower, start it off a bit further left, I'm going to club up a little bit, or whatever. All these things, these calculations need time. Are you giving yourself that time? And then are you in a state that is comfortable to make a golf swing? Are you actually aware of your breathing? We do heart rate variability, we do pulse rate, we do breathing, and we're aware of all these physiological factors, but you don't have to go into that depth. You can just be thinking purely about, is the rate of your breathing, has it increased? Are you starting to feel a little bit more agitated? Are you speeding things up? And like Alex said, almost wishing the holes away because you just want to get it over with. I want to get in the clubhouse. And really, you're just starting to create a disruption in the system. What about, so Sam, what advice would you give? Any other advice we see a lot of club members and stuff going to play, go on the range. Would you say, what kind of advice would you give in addition to what
I think a lot of it stems to leading up to what you do to get to that day as well, so how you are practicing. Are you training to build skill, or are you there with that technical mindset all the time? And I think, there's a place in time to be maybe working on the technicalities, but there's also the ability to separate the two and then really just get into the shot shaping and seeing shots and letting your work your hard work come through. And if you're taking that technical mindset with you all the time, you're essentially just trying to find a swing for the day that works. So I think how you practice is massive to this as well, to allow you to separate, like the question suggested, that the technical mindset, or whatever you call it, separating that to then go play. A lot of that work is done in the weeks, months, hours in the range sessions that you're doing before that as well. So looking at how you practice is quite a big one for me. representative of the demands the course actually requires for your movement, for your ability so are you training skill, or are you just really trying to work on positions and then hoping that somehow that's all going to fall into place to allow you to execute the shot at hand? And it's really quite opposite, isn't it, we find?
Yeah. And why you do it as well, because I think that a lot of this boils down to want. You've got to want to do something as opposed to just force yourself to go and practice.
It's got to be meaningful.
For the sake of doing it, so therefore you can justify it to yourself that you are practicing for a reason.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times people will probably hit 5-10 balls with this mindset of right, I'm going to practice proper tonight.
Yeah.
And then they hit a couple of crappy ones.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, they're off to go and get another token.
Yeah. They're just shelling balls
bang,
in.
Bang, bang, not even looking at the ball land.
It just becomes exercise generally, doesn't it then, the practice session, and not so much as a skill building or challenging yourself really. It hasn't got to, learning is messy, right? So it hasn't got to look perfect, but if you've got a goal or it's meaningful and you know why you're doing it, then the process is actually more organic, and then you're actually probably going to stick with it for longer then and ride the storms and come out the other side as well, I'd say.
Yeah, I think it's about how you prepare for each golf shot. So a golf shot's a golf shot no matter where you are in the world and what the circumstances are. It's in a golf shot.
That's always a thought. I've always gone back to it in a moment of where I felt like there's maybe more on that shot than there would be another day or in other situations. That is my go-to thought. That's from Jake. We've done a coffee morning chat with yourself last year, didn't we? We talked about putt is just a putt, a shot is just a shot, and that always just basically allows you a perception of that moment in time, the realisation that actually, this is just a shot. It's not going to kill me. So embrace it in a way where I want to feel like, not that I've got control over that moment in time, but ironically enough and paradoxically, you give up control of it in order to actually gain the control of it, funny enough. So this idea of just letting go.
Acceptance.
And people, every golfer has felt that, and they've all felt it from often rock bottom. So once they've got to the point where I think that's it, I'm not playing again, often halfway through a round, I'm going to walk off, expectations are completely seriously gone. Next thing you know, they've hit a shot so carefree that they don't care, seriously don't care, then that produces, oh, that was a bit better. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, so there is a big correlation there between dropping expectation and managing it and understanding it as well. So the beautiful thing about golf is that it's never ending. It's a never-ending learning experience, and it transcends into everyday life as well, such as what you're talking about a minute ago, Marcus, with the breathing and allowing yourself to control your physiology. Well, you can do that in other aspects of your life as well. So they merge. So golf, life,
it's all the same thing.
It's such a powerful thing, and I think that's why it captivates so many people. And that is, I think, my interpretation of the book.
Yeah. I think how do you kind of identify? So it's the same person you are away from the course as on the course, but do you suddenly find yourself feeling like a different person? Is it a different version of you that's playing golf, or is it the same person that's walking down the street or going and having a game of football with your mates or whatever it is, and having a game of darts or a game of pool? Is it the same version of you doing that as it is with a club in your hand playing golf? A lot of the time it's a different version. It's something we've constructed in our mind, and we're trying to be something or be somebody. And I think how we practice almost, I think, sort of kind of compounds this, because if you're practicing that sporadic manner that these guys are talking about, where the guy's getting, brilliant, 1 minute is great, 1 minute you're down, 1 minute you're up, all you're doing is you're practicing this kind of disruptive state constantly, so you're going to probably end up playing with this disruptive state because you're practicing. We want to practice how we want to play because we want it to be representative. That means us as a person. So it means when we're practicing, we want to be in this state that we recognise time and time and time again, and we want to be in that same state when we're playing golf. So it starts with the person, it starts with how you recognise your state and how you're reacting to the golf ball. Acceptance is massive, so that kind of expectation thing, I relate to acceptance as well. So a footballer taking a penalty kick, picks his spot, commits. Commitment's a big thing, but what are you committing to? You're picking it, you're going for it, and you go bang. And the acceptance, it might go over the crossbar, it might go into row Z. They don't stop and think about how they were kicking and start looking at the technique. They crack on, game's gone, they've got to go back, start again, and they're off. they move on. They're ready for the next kick. They're ready to receive the next ball. Tennis, if a guy or a lady plays a shot and it just misses the court, okay, I mean, I know the flow of the game's different, but they don't stop and start thinking about the technique. They just go again with the game. And so there's an acceptance that you're going to hit bad shots. You're going to hit bad shots. You're going to miss far often than you hit. So accept the misses. Don't try to break it down into too much detail. Just move on to the next ball and just undertake that same, and if there is anything consistent in golf, it's that process, so that you created a more consistent state, and that's going to help induce this kind of level of performance that you desire, because you're allowing this to naturally emerge instead of trying to make it happen. And so, I mean, I would challenge yourself, right? So I had a couple of guys come for a lesson months and months ago, and they go to the driving range and they go for about 40 minutes and they hit about 3 baskets each in 40 minutes, and there's 20 balls in a basket. They're hitting 60 balls in 40 minutes each, right? And they're both in a bay side by side, probably just getting madder and madder every ball they hit, to a point where they just end up with the driver, like Alex says, after about the 10th ball, and they're just the driver as far as they can and trying to knock it off the end of the range, and essentially the practice session is just chaos now. So it's not actually developing skill like Sam said. It's took on a different form that is really not conducive to how you want to play golf on the course. So it's not representative of what you want to do. It's just a mess, but not in a good way. So I said, look, here's a challenge, guys. So in a round of golf, you're going to have about 2 or 3, 4 minutes, probably 3 or 4 minutes between shots at least, right? What do you do in between those 2, 3, 4 minutes? On a golf course, you're walking, okay? But you're preparing for your next shot. Now, I gave him this challenge. You buy 1 basket, okay? Don't go for 40 minutes. Well, you can go for 40 minutes if you want. Go for half an hour, but essentially it can't be less than half an hour. And you've got 10 balls each, and you've got to last the half hour. Now, you could hit your 10 balls in the first 5 minutes, but you've got to sit on that range. You've got to sit on that range for half an hour. You've got to see out the half hour, but you've got 10 balls each. Now, there's different ways of using that half hour, okay? You can have 10 balls each, use the same bay, okay, and you can hit a shot and reflect on it, make a few practice swings, do a few exercises, talk to your mate about it, get some feedback off your mate. He hits a shot, you give him some feedback, he gives you feedback, and then you're going through the process of now thinking about the shot you're going to play. So I also suggested that they verbalise it to the friend. This is what I intend to do, and then he questions him and says, "How are you going to do it?" Not technically, just wait. What's this ball going to do? And then he plays the shot. They discuss it. And then the guy kind of uses his mate as a bit of a sounding board. You can use him as feedback. And then he's going to go and just do some stuff while his mate hits the shot. And his mate's going to say, well, this is what I intend to do with this ball. They could even play a competition, and they could be trying to play certain shots into a certain target. So that's the next stage, really. But so they're engaged in something that, like Sam says, a task, a game that's kind of representative of what you want to do on the golf course. But they're going through a process, and they're probably going to be taking the same amount of time that they're going to be taking on the golf course between shots. So it's how do you prepare yourself for the next shot? So then they're going to start to explore how they can use that 2, 3, 4 minutes in between balls the most productive way. And then they can start to ask each other, did your physical state, did it change? Did you sense yourself changing from shot to shot? How did you manage that? Were you aware of your breathing? So next time you go to the driving range now, we're going to focus on breathing between shots, and can I control it? And then you can start to go into more depth, heart rate, things like this. But to start with, what are you doing in that time between shots? And if you're interchanging with your mate, he's hitting shots or she, then you've got time to reflect. But you're also mindful of what they're doing, giving them some feedback if they ask for it. You don't give feedback unless asked. And it's a fun thing to do, and you will find it takes a bit of time to actually use half an hour in a productive way, because it's a long time for 20 golf balls, especially 10 balls each. So it's 3 minutes, right? It's 3 minutes per shot. Now, that is about the same as a golf course, probably less, to be honest. I know you're walking. Now what I said to the guys is, have your coffee, because they normally hit balls, have a coffee. I said, have the coffee, it's a casual thing, enjoy that half hour, but use it in a productive way, and then record what you did. So record how you use that time between shots, and was it a positive experience or a negative experience? We don't want to be repeating negative experiences, but the problem is the human brain is hardwired to forget negative experiences quickly. So if something bad happens, okay, we're negatively hardwired for self-preservation, but for experiences that have happened to us, we quickly want to move on. We do remember these things, they do pop up in the future, but as soon as it's happened, we're hardwired to move on, okay? So, are you moving on in a positive way, or are you just repeating continually the process you undertook for that last shot, which created that negative experience? Are you just repeating that whole thing again? So it's the insanity quote. You're just doing the same thing and expecting something different. So are you actually aware that you're repeating this same pattern of events that's creating this negative outcome? And we're all, if you think about it, does your level of performance as a club golfer, does it change that much from over the year? Does your handicap, does it improve year on year? Does it improve as you play more and more, or do you find it kind of goes up a lot, or does it stay the same? A lot of people plateau, they've been like the same handicap for years and years and years. So they're probably doing the same thing week in, week out, but expecting something different. So I would challenge you to half an hour with a friend. Do it. I'd say in pairs, because it's good to get, because generally we play golf with other people. So you're playing golf with someone else, so you're practicing with someone else, someone who can give you some valid feedback, who you trust as well, and value their input, and use that time productively. That would be a fantastic half hour on the driving range, and it's getting you used to the 3 minutes between golf shots. And when you're walking down that fairway, I guarantee you will be thinking about different things next time you play in that 3 minutes, because that 3 minutes between shots is an opportunity to prepare for the next shot. But how often do you get to your shot and it's your turn to go, and it's like, oh, what club is it? Oh, what am I doing? It's like you're underprepared. It's like you've been chatting to your mate all the way and having a laugh, and that's a big part of it, social side of thing. That's my favourite part of it, to be honest. But it's like you get to your ball, total lack of preparation, picking the, you might not even have the right club, or you might go, oh, that'll do. And it's like, how far is it? Oh, it's about 130. About 130. It's like you want to know exactly how far it is if you want to get better, because if that ball finishes 120, you know how far it's finished, and you know how that felt, and you've got feedback, you're learning from the experience, like Alex said, and you can use that in the future. So you're learning from every golf shot, and that takes time. It takes self-awareness, and I'd say these are the areas that we need to use to get better. Agree?
Yeah,
absolutely
perfect.
So
there's
guys,
different ways
yeah.
as well. Just to finish off, there's so many different ways in training, in practicing, in playing, in enjoying, in experiencing and understanding. All that goes into the mix for future reference, and you can start cherry picking from your experiences, which then as a collective should make you better.
Yeah.
If you are good at selecting that, because if I think about certain amateurs who I know, often they've tried to do the same thing in order to improve for the last 15, 20 years. Either have a lesson every now and then, try and implement it, doesn't quite work, so they go back to their type, and then that instantly feels better, so they think, well, I'm not going to get any better, so I'll do it my way. But they've never delved into these other areas that we've spoken about. One thing that we haven't really spoken about, which I think we could do another session on, that is like creating your own motivation and inspiration in order to create this feeling of want, as opposed to going through the motions. Because sometimes with stuff that we've talked about, we can have great intentions, but if you are going through the motions with it, then I don't feel like it gives you the optimal platform in order to produce the best stuff that you can at that moment in time. So we can do another session on that next time.
It's recognising what evokes the best version of you.
Exactly.
So what are the things that you can do that elicit that optimal state for you to perform?
Yeah, and they can win in different ways as well. Having that understanding and having this, when you start going up the levels, the ability to play rubbish and still win that's a different conversation.
Yeah,
but
that's for another day. That's an awesome conversation to have, which we kind of touched on a bit with Jip in that conversation and Nesty. It was awesome. Thanks guys, thanks Belty, thanks Sam.
Cheers.
That was.
Follow them on social media.
Yeah, don't forget Alex Belt Collective.
Yeah.
And Zen.
Zen Golf Coach.
There we go.
And you're already on Zen Golf Mechanics. So stay here. But visit them too. It's all good. We're all talking the same stuff. You're going to get different insights. It's all going to help you with your game because it's not a one size fits all. As you can see, we're finding out what makes each individual tick. That's the important thing. So you've got to explore what makes you tick. Find the best process for you. So thanks again, guys. Congratulations to all the competition winners. We look forward to seeing you soon. You'll be seeing you'll be hearing from us and seeing one of the team. For everyone else, okay, and you can re-enter, of course, guys. Drop a comment in below. Give us your questions. We're going to rerun this again. We're going to be doing another Q&A session. We're going to pick another 3 winners. I was feeling really generous. I nearly went 4, but we're going 3. We're going to pick another 3 winners. We pick 3 questions. They'll be our competition winners, and they're going to receive a free lesson as well. And this is going to be an ongoing thing. So drop your comments below, guys, and we look forward to receiving those and answering them next week. So thanks a lot. I'm just doing a video. All right. It's Mrs. Zen Golf Mechanic. You all right? You're on YouTube. I've got Craig pointing the camera in my face, and we're doing a video with Belty and Sam, and we're on YouTube.